David Beaton was James V's right-hand man. At 34, he was made Lord Privy Seal and Ambassador to France. At 44, he was ordained, made a bishop and cardinal in quick succession. He is the King's chief administrator in clerical garb. James flirted with Protestantism to persuade the Pope to allow him to tax church wealth. His illegitimate children were appointed to wealthy church benefices, with the income going to the crown. James's mother, Margaret Tudor, was Henry VIII's sister. Henry wanted his nephew to break with Rome, and when James refused to speak to him at York, Henry sent an army to Scotland. Three things happen in quick succession. The Scots are routed at Solway Moss, Mary Queen of Scots is born, and James V dies. A scramble for the regency ensues. Beaton appoints himself Lord Chancellor using a forged will, is arrested and imprisoned. The Earl of Arran becomes regent and signs the Treaty of Greenwich, promising the marriage of Mary to Edward VI. Having signed the treaty, Arran slips out of Edinburgh, joins Beaton's Scottish-French party and converts to Catholicism. In December, the Scottish Parliament reject the treaty and Henry starts an 8-year military campaign called the Rough Wooing. In March 1546, Beaton burns young George Wishart, a popular Protestant preacher. 12 weeks later, he is assassinated at St Andrews. The Protestants fortify themselves and are joined by John Knox. Mary of Guise besieges the castle, and John Knox serves 19 months as a French galley slave. The Battle of Pinkie Cleugh is the last major battle of the Rough Wooing. 10,000 Scots are killed, and the English fortify themselves at Haddington. King Edward's new councillors, wanting a less expensive foreign policy, end the Rough Wooing. In April 1558, Mary Stuart marries the French Dauphin. 6 months after the wedding, Elizabeth becomes Queen of England, and things happen rapidly in Scotland. Knox preaches up a rebellion in Perth, which spreads across the country. Protestant nobles take Edinburgh, the French drive them out, but flee when the English fleet arrives. In August 1560, the Scottish Parliament prohibits the practice of the Latin Mass, denies the authority of the Pope, and implements the Reformation across Scotland. The Kirk possessed a representative authority lacking in the Scottish Parliament, and soon became its rival. Melville told the king that in the kingdom of the Kirk, the monarch was only a member. But James did install inactive bishops and impose his authority on the General Assembly. In 1625, Charles became king and introduced the Act of Revocation to reallocate land acquired since the Reformation, of which nobles had taken 2/3. In 1635, Lord Balmerino was sentenced to death for mild criticism of the king. The following year, the new Book of Canons restricted civil and religious liberties. And in 1637, the imposition of the Anglican liturgy ignited rebellion. Charles had united the Kirk and nobles against him. In July 1637, Jenny Guise throws her stool at the minister. In November, with the approval of the Lord Advocate, a provisional government is formed. In February 1638, the king tells the petitioners to disperse on penalty of treason. In response, the Tables and Kirk sign the National Covenant. Both sides arm for war. The Scots, professional and motivated, the English, impoverished and indifferent. The First Bishops' War ends in stalemate with the pacification of Berwick. In the second, the English melted away and the Scots occupied Northumberland. In July 1641, the king returns to Scotland and accedes to all demands. In November, while playing golf, Charles receives news of an Irish rebellion. He leaves Scotland for the last time. In May, the Irish rebellion ends. In October, Edgehill is indecisive, and Pym appeals to the Scots for help. The following year, Fairfax is defeated, Rupert takes Bristol, and the parliamentarians are running down the Bray. The Kirk compose the Solemn League and Covenant to fulfil their dream of a united Presbyterian kingdom, not realising that their divinely elected elders, who are above civil law, ruthless and intolerant, with an unquenchable passion for witch-burning, are anathema to the English. Cromwell said he'd as soon raise his sword against the Kirk as the king, and defeated them at Preston, Dunbar and Worcester, then dismantled the tyranny of the Kirk, liberating education from clerical bigotry, introducing poor relief, training ministers to convert the Highlands, and replacing tyrannical feudalism with English law. Sir Walter Scott said Cromwell certainly did much to civilise Scotland.